My wife of 5 years suddenly filed for divorce without explanation, but I overheard a shocking conversation with her friend that revealed everything. My wife, 32, and I, 30 male, got married 5 years ago. We'd been dating for around 2 years, and I was head over heels in love with her. So when she asked me to marry her, I didn't think twice before saying yes. My wife was an actress struggling to find work back then, and I'm a surgeon. So I pretty much covered all the household expenses. I didn't mind it at all since I wanted her to go after her dream and was more than happy to take care of all the bills. She barely made half of what I did and would only be cast as an extra in most scenes, but she never gave up. Recently, she landed a minor role in a full-length film, and I was thrilled for her. She has around 10 to 15 minutes on screen, but even that's a massive deal for her, and I was thrilled about it. This happened a couple of months ago, and they're supposed to start shooting for her role in a few weeks, but then everything fell apart for me. 5 days ago, when all of a sudden my wife served me with divorce papers, I was completely blindsided since I had never even thought that she'd be asking me for a divorce. She seemed pretty happy with me, and so was I with her, so this was really sudden for me. She told me that she just didn't feel the same way about me anymore and wanted to devote more time and energy to her career now that she was finally getting serious offers. It was just the beginning for her, and she wanted a fresh start, so she couldn't be bogged down by the weight of her past life, which apparently included me. I couldn't believe that she was saying all of this to me, especially after all that I'd done for us, all the sacrifices I'd made, and all the times I'd made sure to put her dreams above myself that led to this. Eventually, I think I must have cried for hours that day and literally begged her to give our marriage another shot, but she was done. She told me that there was nothing that I could fix anymore, and that she just didn't have any feelings for me, which is why it would be in our best interest to separate now. Then she packed up her stuff and left me brokenhearted. That was 5 days back, and I was absolutely lost for the next 4 days. I didn't even go to work. That's how depressed I was, and just kept wishing that I'd wake up from this bad dream. Then yesterday, I received a call from my wife asking me if I could drop off some of her more formal clothes at her friend's house where she's living right now since she has to attend a meeting tomorrow. I agreed readily since that would give me an opportunity to see her in person, and I could try to convince her to come back once more. I guess I was feeling pretty desperate, so I did what I had to and headed over to her friend's place. Once I got there, I realized that the door was open, and I could hear the sound of my wife and her friend talking inside. I was about to knock and enter, but then I heard her friend ask her why she'd even married me in the first place if she didn't have any intention to stay with me. That caught my attention, and I decided to stay silent so that I could eavesdrop on their conversation and get some answers. At least, it seemed to me that they'd already been talking about me, and I just happened to walk in on them at the wrong time. Well, the right time for me, but yeah. Before answering her friend's question, my wife let out a laugh, and then went on to say that the only reason she married me was so that she could use me to get ahead in her career. Other than that, there was no love for me in her heart. And over the years, she'd cheated on me countless times with random men she'd met on set or at parties. I almost let out a gasp, but I somehow managed to control it because I wanted to hear more of what my dear wife had to say. She continued talking, and revealed that she'd met me through a friend of hers who told her that I was the son of a really reputed dental surgeon, which was true. My mom is one of the best dentists in the state, and my wife also knew that a really popular actress just so happens to be a frequent client of my mom since she heard about it from a couple of inside. Now, I can't take names for obvious reasons, but that's also true. Gradually, all the puzzle pieces started to fall into place for me. As she went on talking, she explained how she'd asked me out as a last-ditch effort to make her acting career work. And the fact that I was pretty rich and easy to manipulate was just a cherry on top. So for 5 years, she pretended to love me while waiting for an opportunity to interact with my mom's famous client. The opportunity finally presented itself at my mom's 50th anniversary party around 5 months ago when she finally invited a lot of her friends, and of course, her most popular client, who also happened to be a close friend of hers. I had no idea how, but my wife had managed to speak to her at the party and even impressed her by turning on the charm and ended up exchanging numbers with her. My mom's client had been there for only half an hour, since she was really busy otherwise. But even in that half an hour, my wife had managed to get her number. As much as I detest her now, I have to admit that my wife can be pretty charming when she wants to. So I wasn't surprised that she managed to pull it off. But the fact that this is the reason she wasted 5 years of not just her own life with me, but put me through unimaginable heartbreak. Yeah, I couldn't handle it. To top it all off, I was the reason she'd even landed this role in the first place, because the director of this film signed her at my mom's client's advice. So this was all thanks to me, and yet I'm the one who's been cheated on and is now supposed to get divorced. I really felt like walking in and punching her in her face. But I kept my calm, walked back to my car, and drove back home. This was in the afternoon yesterday. So I had plenty of time to rage and come up with a plan to get back at this selfish monster. I came back home and tried to meditate for a while because I felt furious and was scared that I'd probably end up hurting her physically if I didn't bring my emotions under control. So I did everything to divert my attention and come up with a plan to destroy her. Otherwise, the only thing I could think of doing was asking for the actress's phone number from my mom, calling her up, and demanding that my wife be fired from the film. But I wasn't sure if that would work since this was a professional thing, and I didn't know if they'd even care about what I had to say. My mom's client had known me since I was a college student, and we weren't particularly close, but she knew me better than she knew my wife, obviously. So eventually, I decided that it was at least worth a try and ended up calling her in the evening after talking to my mom. I hadn't yet told anyone about the divorce, not even my family, since I believed I could still turn things around. And this was the first time I was about to acknowledge it, so I felt nervous as hell. Her assistant put me through after a few calls, and after a bit of uncomfortable small talk, I finally blurted out what I wanted her to do and didn't stop talking until I told her everything I had to say. I explained to her that my wife had been cheating on me and had essentially used me and my mom's contacts to land a role in a film, and if there was any justice in the world, she would use her influence to have her fired from the film. I said this all in one breath, and I'm sure she felt as uncomfortable with this confession, if not more. There were a few seconds of silence before she said that she'd look into it, and then hung up after I thanked her. Now, obviously, I was pretty embarrassed by what had happened, but it was done. I could only wait to hear back from either her or my wife, so that's what I did. I think around 2 hours later at 10 p.m. in the night, I received several frantic calls from my wife, and that's when I realized that she must have been fired already. I couldn't believe that this was happening, and sent a thank you text to the woman who made it happen. There hadn't been any contract, and it was just a verbal agreement anyway, so it wasn't much of a hassle for her. Anyway, she texted back and even wished me luck for the future. So that was incredibly sweet of her, and that actually restored my faith in humanity. I ignored all of my wife's calls and texts, turned off my phone, and went to sleep without a care in the world. In fact, I think I must have had the best sleep of my life so far, and I'm not even exaggerating. But then this morning, a few hours after I woke up and was about to leave for work, I heard my wife screaming for me from right outside the door and begging me to open up. I had no intention of letting her in and told her that I needed to go to work, so she needed to leave. She wasn't ready to budge and kept requesting me to speak to her just one last time before I decided to cut her out of my life. After a while, it got kind of boring, so I let her in and told her not to waste any more of my time. She fell straight to her knees and started groveling, saying that she'd made a mistake and that I was the only man she'd ever loved, so I needed to give her one more chance. But now, I was aware of just how great an actor she was, so I didn't feel sorry for her in the least. I let her sob for a few minutes, and then asked her how that acting gig in the film was working out for her. I'd made sure that it sounded like I was mocking her, because, let's be real, that's exactly what I was doing. And I think she must have looked surprised for a second or two before she stood back up, letting the reality sink in. Once she'd finally figured out that I'd been the one behind her losing out on an opportunity of a lifetime, she went berserk and started screaming in my face about how I'd ruined her life, and that she was going to make me pay for it. I didn't hold back either and yelled right back, saying that she'd been the one who ruined 5 years of my life, and that she deserved this, and even worse. We must have been screaming at each other for around 5 minutes, but then she finally seemed to break down because she knew that no amount of screaming and shouting was going to bring back what she'd lost. Not the role, and definitely not the good life she'd been leading with me. And she had nobody else to blame for it but herself. I almost felt sorry for her, but then, even while she was crying, she made sure to warn me that she'd take away everything in the divorce and make sure I ended up on the street. Now those were some bold words, and any sympathy I felt for her vanished immediately when she said that. I told her as politely as I could to get the hell out of my house, and she obliged, still crying, but continuously calling me cuss words under her breath. I decided to skip work once again today, since what had happened was really heavy and awful. So I'm just not in the right state of mind at the moment. Ida for ruining my wife's career right before it took off because she'd been using me for years and had even been cheating on me? Update 1. I finally told my friends and family about the divorce, and they were just as blindsided as I was when my wife had first told me about what she wanted. But then I explained what I'd overheard at a friend's house, and they were all so disgusted that they even told me that what I'd done in retaliation was nothing in comparison to what she'd done to me. My mom was obviously livid that her daughter-in-law had used me and her to get what she wanted. She wanted to go over to her place and knock some sense into her with her fists, but I managed to calm her down somehow. I'm glad that most people agree with the fact that what I did was totally justified, because what she'd done to me was beyond cruel. She basically ruined my faith in women and marriage forever, so I think she deserved to have her hard work taken away from her. If she'd invested years in her career, then even I had invested several years and a crap load of money in our marriage. So if she could single-handedly ruin our marriage, then I don't think me single-handedly ruining her career should be that big of a deal to her either. But I guess it is for whatever reason. She feels that she was robbed of an opportunity because of me and keeps pestering me online to take back what I said and somehow help her get the role back. I keep blocking her accounts, but unfortunately, she's desperate enough to keep creating new ones. So I'm considering going off of social media altogether. I don't know why she feels entitled enough to even text me after what she's done, but I think after a while she'll realize that she's done for, and there's no going back from this. I guess whatever she'd said about ruining me, and the divorce was just nothing more than words after all. Because both of us know quite well that she's not actually capable of doing literally anything to me. Update 2. I blocked my wife on social media and deactivated my account a few days back, but now I guess I have to change my phone number as well. Since last night, I've received around 70 to 80 spam calls from several different numbers, and it's getting on my nerves. Every couple of minutes my phone starts buzzing relentlessly, and it's always some new number. I don't know how she's doing this, but I know it's her who's doing it. I even called her to make her stop and even tried to warn her, saying that these little stunts would definitely affect the settlement. Obviously, I was bluffing. There's no settlement. I don't owe her anything, but I was still trying to use it as leverage so that she'd stop bothering me. But she was hellbent that she had nothing to do with any of this. I could tell by her voice that she was lying, but she kept denying it. And that was even more frustrating for me to deal with. Towards the end, when I was about to cry, she implied that the calls might stop by some miracle, and the miracle involved her getting her role back. I actually ended up screaming some select curse words at her through the phone as loud as I could, and then turned it off. I still haven't turned it back on, and I'm using my laptop to access the internet right now. I'll only turn it back on after I can get a new number. And hopefully, then she won't be able to drive me nuts because she won't even be able to get to me. As for the divorce, I think everyone knows that I'm not going to contest it, and we're supposed to appear in court in a few days. I don't know why she's misbehaving with me in spite of the fact that we're supposed to see each other in court in just a few days, and she knows very well that I can mess her up if I want to. Lucky for her, I don't really want to. I did what I had to, and now I just feel like letting this whole thing go peacefully and without putting up a fight anymore. I don't think holding on to this rage and letting myself be bothered by her existence will ever allow me to truly move on from this episode. So I just want to be done now. I don't care what becomes of her, whether she succeeds in the future or fails. I just don't care and don't want anything to do with her anymore now. Update 3. So the day after tomorrow, my wife and I were supposed to appear in court, and a freaking course, she couldn't just let that happen without doing something insane and psychotic. I changed my numbers, and so she couldn't get to me anymore since my social media accounts were deactivated as well. I was so sure that I had her beat this time, and she'd just have to give up, but I guess I underestimated just how psycho she is. I was on my way back home last evening, and was about to get into my car when my wife came out of absolutely nowhere and got into the seat beside me. Then she proceeded to lock the doors of the car from within before I even had time to react. As soon as I realized what was happening, I grabbed my purse to get my pepper spray out. But I was too late since she'd already taken it away from me and tossed my purse to the back seat. I was terrified and was ready to apologize or whatever it was that she wanted me to do. At that moment, she spoke to me really calmly, which scared me even more, and told me that she didn't want much from me. She just wanted me to call my mom's actor client up, take back whatever I told him, and make sure she gets the role. I thought that was easy enough, but my phone was in my purse, so I told her that I needed it to make the call. Now I'm not stupid, but my wife sure is. As soon as she handed me the purse, I grabbed my pepper spray, and I think I emptied half of it in one go. I could barely see anything because my eyes were watering and stinging so bad, but her condition was even worse than mine, and she was literally spluttering for breath after getting sprayed. I unlocked the doors, pushed her out of the car, and left her coughing on the ground before driving away. I only managed to get out of the parking lot and a few yards away from my workplace before I got out of my car since I was struggling to see anything and definitely couldn't drive back home in that condition. Thankfully, a cab pulled up for me, and the driver seemed to be the helpful kind as well. He realized that there was something really off and offered to drive me to the nearest police station, and I said yes without thinking twice. The next 2 hours were a blur for me, honestly, because I was still really shaken up from what had happened to me back in the parking lot. I knew that my wife was crazy, but this was way more than what I'd bargained for. I could hardly even believe that I'd been happily married to this woman for 5 years, and she was the one putting me through this crap now. Thankfully, she was placed under arrest since she hadn't been able to get away from the parking lot because of how bad her condition was. When they brought her in, her face was still red and slightly swollen, and I'm glad that she was in pain. Once I pressed charges against her, I left, but instead of going back home, I headed to my parents' place instead. Honestly, I just didn't feel safe by myself anymore, and haven't been out of the house ever since I came here. My parents have been really kind and have been looking after me like I'm their little boy again, so that's some consolation for me. My dad's promised me that he's going to make sure that this woman gets a befitting punishment, and I'm not going to stop him this time. Some women need to learn that they can't just push men around and get away with it. Update 4. Hey there. It's been a few weeks since the last update, and I'm happy to inform you guys that my wife was sentenced to 3 months in prison and a hefty fine for what she'd done to me. I wish she'd had to face more time, but it's alright. This seems fair. As for the divorce, we were able to fast-track it, and it's going to be finalized way sooner than usual divorce cases given the circumstances. She's also not entitled to any compensation at all, so hooray for me on that as well. I've sold the house and even my car so that there's no way she can ever track me down again. I've also started working at a newer and better hospital, which is a lot closer to my parents' place. So it's more convenient for me to travel back and forth. Yeah, I'm still living with them since they absolutely refuse to let me go back to living by myself, even though my wife literally can't get to me anymore, at least not right now. But I'm actually sort of happy that they're keeping me close because honestly, I still haven't recovered from the shock of it all. I've begun therapy to deal with my emotions, but of course, I'm going to take time to heal and can't expect everything to go back to normal in a day or two. In spite of my best efforts to push her out of my mind, I still find myself looking back at the years that we spent together. I can't believe that it was all just lies and nothing more than that, because some parts really did feel sincere. Every time I find myself thinking about her, I actively force myself to remember what happened afterward in the incident in the parking lot, and that seems to bring me back to the present. I know these wounds won't heal so soon, but I'm taking one day at a time, and hopefully I'll be alright someday soon. And I swear that day couldn't come soon enough.